Welcome to the Football for Kids podcast with me, Darren Rees. In this episode, we're going to be speaking about one of the Football for Kids' most requested players, the South Korean footballing machine, Heung-Min Son. Before we do that, as always, we need to do some shout-outs and some messages. So let's get on with them, shall we? The first one on this episode says, "Hello, my name is Elijah and I'm 7 years old and I live in Nottingham. I'm a big Man City fan and my favourite episode has been the one about Phil Foden. My favourite player because he's got the same name as my dad. Please can we have a podcast about Mo Salah and Haaland? Thank you for doing interesting podcasts because we listen to them on a long journey. Even my mum enjoys them." And that is from Elijah Moore. Well, thank you very much for being a listener and thank you for your message, Elijah. There is already an episode on Haaland. You've probably already listened to it by now. It's called Haaland the Goal Machine. And I'm really glad that you're all listening and enjoying the podcast, even your mum. That is an achievement. Thank you very much. And the next one says, "Hi Darren, my son Sebastian, who's age 7, and Thomas, who's age 6, really enjoy listening to your podcast and are inspired hearing about all the different players. The podcasts have helped us get through some long drives to Devon and Cornwall, so we're happy to have discovered it." Well, thank you very much to the Griffith family. I really appreciate your message and I'm glad to hear that you're enjoying the podcast and it's keeping you company on those long drives to Devon and Cornwall. The next one says, "Hello Darren, we are Thomas and Jacob Loveridge, aged 10 and 7 years old from Nailsea near Bristol, and we really enjoy listening to your show, especially the ones about Messi and Haaland. We are big Liverpool fans and it would be great to hear a show on the Egyptian king Mo Salah. We play for Nailsea Junior United football team and love playing football in the garden and on FIFA. A shout would be fantastic." Well, a massive shout out to you two, Thomas and Jacob, and a huge shout out to everybody at your football team, Nailsea Junior United, and especially to your coaches who I'm sure do an absolutely tremendous job. And the last one on this episode is a big shout out to Millen, who is 6 years old and from London. He says, "I love your Football for Kids podcast. We listen to it in the car when we're going to school. Please can you make an episode about Anthony because he's my favourite player." Well, thank you very much, Millen. I really appreciate you being a listener as well, and I hope that you enjoy this episode. That's all we've got time for this episode in terms of shout-outs and messages. If you'd like to get a shout-out in, you can send an email to footballforkidspodcast@gmail.com. And remember, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple or Amazon, it's really important to hit the follow or the subscribe button. It helps other people find the podcast and it means you'll never miss an episode. Right then, let's get into this one. About the brilliant, the fantastic, the marvellous, the terrific, the sensational Heung-Min Son. Son was born and raised in South Korea, and like many of the successful footballers that we have spoken about on this podcast, Son came from a family where sport was very important. Son's dad was also a professional footballer, and he played for the South Korean national team. Son's dad was very strict with him, would have him practising his football skills and drills in the garden for hours and hours at a time. Son's dad was not keen on him playing in competitive matches until he was in his teenage years. He didn't believe it was good for young footballers and he had his own theories around it. When Son was around 16 years old, he joined a team called FC Seoul, a team in the capital of South Korea. Son made his way through the youth academy there and stood out as an extremely talented and hard-working player with incredible ball control and ability. The hours and hours of practice with his dad in the garden had well and truly paid off. Son loved his football, and if he wasn't playing or practicing, he was being a ball boy for the senior games at FC Seoul. He always had one eye on a football. After one season at FC Seoul, Son made his way to Europe. He was off to Germany and to join Hamburg. Hamburg are a team of a decent standard and known for taking young international players. A little fun fact for you, and this came from one of the Football for Kids listeners, Callan Bottrell. Son can speak fluent German and he learnt how to speak German from watching the cartoon programme SpongeBob SquarePants. He can also speak fluent English as well. Son settled into Hamburg and playing football in the Bundesliga. He was still a young footballer who was finding his feet. Over the next 3 seasons, Son would end up playing 78 games at the club and scoring 20 brilliant goals. In 2013, it was time for Son to go from one German club to yet another one. Those days of watching SpongeBob were coming in handy. Son joined Bayer Leverkusen, another good club in the Bundesliga. Leverkusen paid €10 million for him, which was at the time the most money they'd ever spent on any player. The club were getting their money's worth though, as he scored 3 goals in his first 3 matches, and scored a hat-trick against his old club Hamburg. Son became a bit of a get-out-of-jail-free card for the club. He would bang goals in when the team desperately needed him so much. There was one game when Leverkusen were 3-0 down against Wolfsburg, and Son scored a hat-trick. What a player! In just over 2 seasons with the club, he played 87 amazing games and scored 29 brilliant goals for them. But his time in German football was coming to a close. Heung-Min Son was off to England and off to join the Premier League. And in 2015, he joined Tottenham Hotspurs. Tottenham paid €30 million for Son, and he became the most expensive Asian player in the history of the game. Son didn't take long to start making a name for himself in the Premier League. He scored against the top teams in the division. He scored against European sides in the Champions League, and he made history when he was voted Premier League Player of the Month. And he was the first Asian player to ever win that award. In March 2017, Son was playing in the FA Cup against Millwall. Some of the Millwall fans were chanting horrible things at him, so Son responded by scoring his first hat-trick for Spurs. He then played a big part in Tottenham scoring another 3 goals, and they ended up beating Millwall 6-0. Son's 50th goal for Spurs is one that he will never forget. It was 2018 in a game against Chelsea. Dele Alli stuck the ball up the wing, and Son hit the turbo button as he went flying up the right-hand side of the wing. He went past one player, skimmed another in the box, and was surrounded by 4 defenders. Son did not muck about, sticking Tottenham's 3rd goal into the back of the net, and it won Goal of the Month. In the following season, Son was shortlisted for the Ballon d'Or award, a prestigious award for the best player in the world. In the 2019 season, Heung-Min Son scored another individual goal that he and Tottenham fans won't forget in a hurry. It was against Burnley in a match which ended 5-0. Harry Kane had already scored an outside-the-box scorcher, and Spurs were all over him. Son got the ball at one end of the pitch. He went through 5 or 6 midfielders and defenders, took the keeper on in a one-on-one, and tucked the ball away to seal the deal. The goal was voted as both the Goal of the Month and the Goal of the Season. That's how good it was. One of the things which Son is known for most within his time at Spurs is his tremendous relationship with Harry Kane. The pair of them work so well together. They know where each other are at all times. They know where each other want the ball, and they know which foot they want it on. And everything else which goes together to make a superb partnership. In the 2020 season, Son scored 4 goals in one match against Southampton. Harry Kane assisted in all 4 of them. This was the first time any player has ever scored 4 goals in one match in the Premier League, with all the goals being assisted by the same player. What a combination. Son has become one of the Premier League's great goal scorers, and one of Tottenham's top goal scorers as well. In the 2021 season, Son won the Premier League Golden Boot along with Mo Salah. Son became the first Asian footballer to ever win the award, making history yet again. Heung-Min Son has played a whopping great 364 games for Tottenham and scored 142 amazing goals. Apart from banging goals across the Bundesliga and the Premier League, Son has become a role model to South Koreans and has played for his country over 110 times. And in 2019, he had one of the greatest honours any footballer could ever have. he was made the captain of his country. Heung-Min Son is proof that if you practice, you'll get better. If you try, you'll get results. And that if nasty people shout horrible things, it's best to shut them up with a hat-trick. I hope that you've enjoyed listening and learning about the career and story of the brilliant Heung-Min Son. And remember, if you know someone who loves football just as much as you do, then please tell them about Football for Kids. And whether you're playing football soon, watching it on the telly or pitchside, I hope that you enjoy the game. See you next time.